Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, whatever time you're watching or listening to this, and welcome to this week's episode of the Non Identity Podcast. Now, this week we're joined by someone who's a betrayal recovery specialist. It's Vanessa. Hi, Vanessa. Welcome to the show.
Oh, Lee, thank you so much. Oh, we're going to have such a great conversation. I'm looking so forward to this. So thank you for the opportunity.
No worries, and I'm really looking forward to it as well. Before we get into what you actually do, can you just tell people who you are and where you grew up and stuff?
Well, my name is Vanessa Cardenas, and I'm outside of New York City. I was raised in New York City, but I was actually in your old stomping ground. I was born in South Kensington.
Oh, wow.
Look at Yes, so I have dual citizenship. Woohoo!
And how old was you when you moved over to the States?
Oh, I was 2.
Oh,
Hence
okay.
hence I don't have the accent, the beautiful accent at all. I have the quick New York accent, and we speak quickly, so I will slow it down.
and how was it growing up in New York? 'Cause I interviewed someone who got caught up in the gang culture before. Did you see much of that growing up?
Grew up in the 1970s and 80s when the city was very seedy, and it was definitely the concrete jungle without a doubt, but it gave me who I am. It made me who I am, and I'm so grateful. I'm actually so grateful. It we're a different breed. We absolutely are. If you're from New York, and we can spot each other pretty quickly because we just have that grit and we have that common sense and that just we're here. Yeah, we could be accused of being a little rude and rough around the edges. I get that. But at the same time, we have great compassion. We truly, truly do. And that was evident, not to bring in 9/11, but definitely during 9/11, where just New Yorkers like held on to each other. And they really, this object, this building just signified so much to New Yorkers as well as people around the world, but something about New Yorkers, especially people in Manhattan, that they just felt a sense of ownership and pride and loss for a building.
Yeah, no, that come across in the media. Like it seemed like everyone come together with community spirit in that. So, like you said, that sort of I think that gives the reputation to New Yorkers now because that was seen across the world that New Yorkers are seen as a kind-hearted, spirited people. You said as well you're a betrayal recovery specialist. What is your story into getting into that?
No, nobody studies this. Nobody studies this unless they go through it. And I went through it. My husband of over 20 years said 3 words to me I never ever thought he would say is I've met someone. And in a split second, my whole world shattered. It just did. I became a shell of myself. I couldn't even get out of bed, let alone do anything else. I was completely broken because I never, ever, ever thought he would say those words to me. And I dove into recovery as best I could alone because I have a psychology degree. I'm a smart woman. I work in the C-suite executives. I'm in boardrooms. Why is this affecting me the way it was really my biggest question to myself. Why was this? Why? And I felt it so deeply. It was just a cut that just, it was so gut wrenching for me. And it wasn't until I actually seeked out help. I thought I could do it alone. And that was the biggest mistake. And that's my biggest regret because it so delayed my recovery because I didn't search out another human, another person to talk to because I felt so alone. I just felt so alone in my grief. And it's a different type of grief. When we lose someone, when they move on to the other side, they're gone, body and mind, they're gone. Maybe their spirit is still with you and in your heart and your memories and everything else, but they're gone. When you go through betrayal, you go through the grieving process, but the other person's still right there. And if you're trying to reconcile, that person's right there, even though they feel like a stranger to you. You don't know them. You just don't. You look at them and you're like, how could you do this to me? You were my safe person. You were it. You were everything to me. And you did this? You did this. And I went through the recovery process. And during that recovery process, with all the gurus, I went to the top people to be able to help me because I was so broken and nothing was working for me. I was just sitting in that all the time. And it wasn't until, and again, it always takes one moment. It takes one person to say one thing to you for you to be for you to click and for you to pivot and just, wow, okay, now 1 degree pivot and I'm in a different direction and the world seems so much brighter. It just does. And it was said, you know what? Even though something terrible has happened to you, it wasn't about you. It really wasn't about you. It had nothing to do with you. These were his actions. He did this. You didn't cause it. You're not to blame for it. Nothing of the sort. And that was a pivotal moment for me. And that's when I cracked open and my healing started that journey. And I remember so distinctly wanting to be sure that I would never allow someone else to feel this way, to feel the way I felt in the darkness and the depths and just feeling like there was no way out. I didn't know what to do. And I wanted to be sure that I would be that beacon of hope for someone else, that I could be that beautiful example of what's actually possible on the other side of betrayal. Because there is beauty over here. There absolutely is. Not that I wish betrayal on anybody. Oh, it's the most gut wrenching thing you'll ever go through. But if you're going to go through something horrific, like you and Claire did with her medical conditions, and that episode, oh, mm, that went right through me. Um, really shows the compassion of when we go through such terrible things, we get through to the other side and we're different. And dare I say, Lee, we're better for the experience. We truly are because when you walk through fire, yeah, you come through the other side and now you know. Now you know, not only do you have the knowledge, because you can have knowledge, that's book smart. You can read it in a textbook. It's wisdom. Wisdom is lived through experience plus knowledge. We have that.
And until you got given those words, was there a lot of self doubt on your side of things and low self esteem because of he said that to you? So did you feel like it was you that had done something wrong?
Oh, absolutely. I took it all on. I took on all the guilt and the shame and just I absorbed it. There was something wrong with me. I wasn't enough. I was too much. Everything. You name it and I went through it and the ruminating thoughts over and over and over again. I played our entire relationship because yes, we had been married over 20 years, but we had known each other for almost a decade prior to that. I replayed our entire relationship looking for all those little red flags. What did I miss? What did I do? What didn't I do? And I beat myself up relentlessly. That nasty chick voice on my shoulder, oh, she was relentless with me. And it wasn't until I could start tapping that down by having the support system around me of a therapist, of a coach, of a marriage counselor, of a support group where I would be able to feel like I'm not alone. And once I felt like I wasn't alone, I could actually start working towards moving through the betrayal recovery process.
No, I totally agree with what you're saying because, like, as you mentioned with my wife a minute ago, I know it's a different set of circumstances, but that feeling of one, you don't want to put the burden onto anyone else, and two, you also think that no one's going through what you're going through. But like you said, there is so much support networks out there that you need to reach out. With you, and obviously, like we said, it was a different sense of thing. How do you get through day by day? Because obviously, you're in a very dark place. I know you spoke to people and stuff, but at the end of the day, we still go to bed on our own or with someone, and we still wake up with our own faults. So, how did you get yourself through things?
Mm. There were a couple of different exercises that were really powerful for me. The first and foremost was it was journaling. And I was always a writer, but not a I could write fiction, I could write, I could write stories and things like that, but not just writing for the sake of writing. I always had to have a purpose because I was a psychology major, and I was smart, and I had to write for a purpose, and I didn't think that journaling had a purpose. Like, I'm just supposed to just write how I feel? Well, and it was funny, my coach is like, "I want you to get 3 books, 3 journals. One is the crap journal. This is where you dump. You just write whatever you're feeling, and if it's big block letters of, I hate him, I can't stand this, why don't am I hurting so much?" Anything you wanna write in big, black, bold letters, you wanna write it in Sharpie, go ahead. It's where you dump all your feelings. The second one is where you take a breath and you're like, okay, what am I feeling right at this moment that I can look out to and see it being a little positive? Just a little. Just a moment of gratitude. Can I say thank you for the sunshine for today because it's not raining kind of thing? Is there a moment in time that I can actually have a little bit of gratitude? Just a little. Just a little. That's fine. And then the third one, she says, you're not going to write in for like weeks, maybe even months. Just have it there as potential. That's where you write down your dreams, what you're looking forward to, what you're hoping for, but not a dumping ground. It has to be good things you're looking forward to. And she was right. It wasn't touched for quite a while. But then, because it was beautiful, it was gold leaf and it was, and that's what she said, buy the most beautiful journal you can find. Has to be expensive, has and beautiful pen, and you will only write down good things in this journal, but you won't touch it for a while. She was right. Yeah, as I said. And then when I started writing in it, it felt so good. It just did. So it's gotta get all those emotions out in any which way that you'd like to. The other thing that I absolutely loved, and this got out a lot of the rage that I had in me because I had so much rage, was a wiffle bat. A wiffle bat. Yeah, right here. My 6th one, by the way. Now I use it for clients. A wiffle bat. Because what you do is you go to town on your bed or on your sofa, and you just swing and swing and swing and swing and swing, and you swing till you're exhausted. Because what you're doing is channeling all of that rage and emotion through you. Because what happens is our bodies become coffins for all of these emotions that we feel. We have got to get them out. We have got to get them out. That's why when you're enraged, you suddenly have so much energy because it's going through you, but then it's getting trapped. You have to allow it to go through you. So those 2 things were really helpful for me because when I felt like triggers and things were coming at me so fast and the avalanche of feelings, I'd either write them down or I'd grab a hold of my wiffle bat and go into my bedroom, slam the door because we love slamming doors, and then just going to town on my bed, just over and over and over again until the point of exhaustion.
What advice would you give to someone like? So I'm dyspraxic, so writing for me is quite triggering. So I've never done journaling because, like I said, it triggers me to write because writing's like a 5-year-old. My spelling's bad, but I keep hearing a lot of people advise about journaling. But to me, I can't. The worst thing that I can think of is sitting down with a book and writing. Would you think like dictatorship could help,
Yeah.
like to speak your feet? Would that be a way?
Yeah, and the beauty for you, Lee, is you're used to being on camera. And that I suggest to a lot of my younger clients that are used to being on camera. Talk to the camera. Tell the camera how you feel. Talk to it. Just get it out, get it out, get it out, and then replay it. Maybe weeks later, maybe months later, so that you can see the incremental growth that you have had. It's the same if you look at your very, very first podcast episode and your
Yeah,
podcast episode now, it's night and day. It is, but you don't recognize that because incrementally every week you're dropping a new episode and you're moving forward with your episodes that you don't make that connection. And when you're going through recovery and you just feel like everything is just so hard and so difficult, it's about those incremental steps. Just because you buy a pair of running shoes doesn't mean the next morning you can run a marathon. It's not going to happen. Just because you go to the gym tomorrow and you work out for 6 hours, the next day you don't have a six pack. It's incremental steps over and over again. So if journaling, sometimes journaling doesn't feel right to people. People are like, oh God, I got to carry around a book and all this other kind of stuff. They don't want to do it. Fine. That's the beauty of finding something that clicks with you, something that you like doing, that you feel the emotions move through you. Some people take up kickboxing, some people take up running and jogging and all kinds of movement. And what it is they're moving their bodies, but they're also moving that emotion. If you can move the emotion through your body, even just talking to a screen and saying, hey, good morning, here's what I'm feeling today. And actually saying it and playing it back and seeing yourself, woo, that's powerful.
no, I totally agree. I think same like when we look back at old photographs, like over a year, we don't take time to realise. You can look at a photo and think, actually, I've lost a load of weight, but you haven't seen it because you're seeing yourself every day. You don't take time to look. So I think, yeah, I think recording, like you said, either Canva, journaling, or something you can look back on months down the line. I think it's a really good, powerful tool for people to use. When you came to allowing yourself to get into other relationships, how scary was that, and what was the steps for that happening? Are you at that point at the moment
Well, that's an interesting question because I'm still married.
to the same person?
Yes, same
Oh,
person. Yes, we worked through it because as it turned out in my particular case, and again, that's the beauty of all of our relationships. That's the beauty of us. Each person is unique as your fingerprint. And that means that your relationship is equally as unique. What works for one couple doesn't necessarily work for another couple. And what one couple's going through is not necessarily what another couple's going through. In my particular case, my husband said those 3 words to me. I've met someone and I completely fell apart. I reacted. I didn't respond. I reacted in such a way that my husband turtled in. He like shut down. He didn't know like he didn't anticipate my reaction that way. He thought that we would have a conversation at which point he would be able to say, I've met someone who's been paying me a lot of attention. I really like that attention. I miss that attention, but I want it from you. I don't want this other person. I want you. But because we've been married so long, we've known each other for so long, that initial intoxication when you first fall in love, that had dissipated. And we became very comfortable in our relationship. We each did. And it wasn't until this other woman over on the side started paying him attention in a way that he suddenly realized he missed that it then caused him to have this conversation with me, but because in a split second, the second he said it to me, I had a movie playing in my head of he's walking down the aisle with her. They're gonna have other kids and a house and a cars and the house on the beach and everything else, and he's gonna have this perfect life, and I'm gonna be with cats. I'm gonna have 20 cats and I'm gonna be alone for the rest of my life. That's the immediate picture I had in my head, and it just played on repeat for me, and I stopped hearing anything that he said. Not that he said anything at that point because he saw my reaction to it, and it wasn't until 6 months later in couples counseling that he finally got that out of his mouth that that's what was going on. It was, in our particular case, that someone else had entered into the picture paid him attention, and he was rightfully so communicating with me, "Hey, we have something going on. You and I have something going on. We have a disconnect and we need to get reconnected." But because of my reaction and how I took it all on as if it was my fault,
Yeah.
he shut down. He didn't know what to say. He didn't know how to say because anytime he spoke to me, I raged on him. Yeah.
So have you sort of reset the rules now? Because obviously, is there not a worry that this could happen again? So do you have a set of rules now that if things ain't working out too well, you might stop and sit down and have a conversation? And is that helping out?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Our relationship is so much better now than it was before. And again, I came from a position where I thought it was good then. We
Yeah,
had a good relationship. We had the house and the cars and the this and the that and the blah blah blah, and we lived life. And I checked off all the boxes. Everything to me was good. And again, it wasn't until somebody else entered the picture that it was like, "Ooh, wait a second, what's that over there? I kind of like that, but I want us both to go over there." And whatnot. But now we have conversations. We do when we feel like something's off, rather than just dismissing it as oh, whatever type of thing. We actually talk about it and we have really in-depth conversations. And the beauty of it is, as well, is our children get to see that
yeah,
because our children unfortunately were collateral damage in all of this. They were teenagers at the time, and mom's just always in her bedroom crying. Like I'd come to the dinner table, my bloodshot eyes, I'd be a mess. And they withdrew. They didn't know how to help me. I didn't know how to help myself, let alone anything else. And they got to see us work through and see that. So that was a good life lesson for them to know that it's so important in this digital world where we are warriors with our thumbs
yeah.
to actually look up, look somebody in the eyes, and have a conversation. Use our words, use our words to communicate how we're actually feeling. And besides using our words, use our ears to truly listen and not guess or circumvent what we think the other person said, but ask for clarity when something just doesn't sound right. It's like, wait a second, what are you saying? And that, again, my regret is that day when he says, I've met someone and I reacted. Had I just paused, taken a moment, and said, "Tell me more.
Exactly.
Clarify. What are
And
you
I think
trying to tell me?"
sorry. I think it's about acceptance as well, because you might hear someone else's point of view. You might not agree with it because you've got your own values and opinions in your head. But the fact that that person's communicated that with you, you've got to take that on board and you've got to accept that's how they feel. And I think that's a lot of thing in communication that a lot of people don't do. Like obviously with the young people I work with, that's a lot of thing I try and instill with them. Obviously, in relationship with your own children, I think you've got your own morals and values that a lot of the time you think to yourself, I'm right. So whatever this, I'm dismissing whatever you're saying because I know I'm right. But actually, you've got to take a step back and think, well, if that's what they're communicating, I've got to accept that and to probably see it from their side as well. Do you
Mhm.
find that's when you're helping your clients out and stuff, that's what's needed as
Yes.
well?
Yes, that was beautiful, and I'd love to add to it is, without a doubt, when we get into conversations with, "I'm right, you're wrong," oh, those are combative. When we use words like never and always, those are definitive, decisive words in our language that we need to eliminate. You're absolutely right. It's all about communication, and it's okay for people to have differing opinions. And that's what they are. They're opinions, but they're not they shouldn't be absolutes. Absolutes, and that's where we there's a breakdown in communication because, again, even with just listening to another person, giving them the space. And you do it all the time on your podcast. You give people the space to share their insights, their thoughts, their suggestions. But that's all it is. It's insights, thoughts, and suggestions. It's not the be all end all. It's not my way or the highway. It doesn't work that way. It truly doesn't.
You decided to go into coaching. What was the idea behind? I know you said like you wanted to make sure that no one else went through what you did, but how did you actually go about the steps of becoming a coach and dealing with clients?
Mm. Well, I suddenly realized that I've actually been coaching for over 20 years in my position because I would have employees. At one time we had over 400 employees. I would have employees come to me with work related items, but they got very comfortable with me talking about personal items. A lot of divorces, a lot of, situations where they were the caregiver for their families and so forth. And I found it very interesting and I enjoyed it. I absolutely enjoyed it, but I never looked at it as coaching or counseling in any way. I was just being helpful. And it wasn't until I actually had my mentor, my guru who helped me through betrayal. I was part of her support group, and I was always supporting the other humans around me. I was almost like everybody else's sponsor, if you look at it like AA type of situation. And I relished in it. I loved it. And she said to me, she says, you're really good at this. And good at what? Like I still didn't know. And she's like, you're really good at coaching. You're really good at listening. You're really good at l- guiding people through and offering them a world of opportunity for them to choose whatever they would like. And you're all about choice. And she says, it's so beautiful to see you interact with others and lift them up and make them feel better. You need to do this. And she was the one that kind of held my hand and said, "Hey, yeah, do this. Do this. You'd actually be really good at this." And it took off from there. I started with pro bono clients. I just, offered myself up high. I'm new to this. And I classified myself as new. And she said, "No, no, 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 no. You're new to the knowledge, but you have the wisdom because you've lived through experiences your whole life." Because one of the things that I discovered is the reason that my husband's betrayal, hit me so hard was because I had had all these little micro betrayals throughout my whole life, starting in childhood when, the class bully took my lunch money and everybody laughed at me. And, my best friend at the time, turned her back on me. She didn't want to have anything to do with me. And teenagehood, we go through that and we have all those little betrayals, but we don't have the language to identify what is actually going on. We know how it feels inside of us, and we can recall it just like that because that pain and that hurt, because emotions are the glue that keeps that memory alive. And that's what I'm talking about with your body becoming a coffin for all of these emotions. And we need to move those through so that those little micro betrayals don't keep stacking on each other to the point where it gets to the top and you have this big explosion of a big betrayal that becomes a earth-shattering betrayal because you have all these little ones that you never quite cleaned up. They're little scars on you. And now this big one has now exploded, and all those scars have now opened up as well. Because again, you're going through all of those emotions. I'm not good enough. I'm not this. I'm not that. So you're looking for red flags in your relationship, but your subconscious is looking for all the red flags that happen throughout your whole life.
If someone's feeling like they want to seek help and support off someone like you, but is nervous about taking that first step, what advice would you give to them for reaching out?
You're going to feel so much better. You're going to feel so much better. Even it's it's such a release to reach out to someone and for them to reach back to you. That is the most important thing, and it's not a one and done thing. It's not where, "Oh, I've reached out to this person, they haven't contacted me back. Oh, I'm not worthy. I'm not this, I'm not that, I'm not enough." No. No, 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 no. There is help out there. Reach out, cast your net out and find that person that you connect with. That's not necessarily me. You might take offense to the fact that I have pink in my hair. I don't know. Maybe you take offense to the fact that I don't coddle. I will hold your hand and I will help you. I'm not going to carry you. I'm not going to take it on. I'm different. I'm different than a lot of other people in the space because we're all unique, very much so. Reach out to a handful, get an idea of what they offer to you, and maybe even just start in a support group. I host a support group. I'm so proud of the people that are in my support group because they took that chance. And yes, it's on Zoom, but yes, you can have your screen completely dark. You can have your name out, name off, for privacy and everything else if you want to stay in the background and just listen. That's great. You're listening to the podcast now. That's a huge step. You're actually looking for that knowledge. Look for that knowledge and then turn it into wisdom by going through the process. Support groups. Start with a book. Resonate with somebody that can help you. My only word of caution is to reach out to someone who's been through betrayal. There's trauma, there's grief, there's all different nuances, but betrayal, very different. It is very different. And you really need that guidance to help you move through it. And the first step is just reaching out. That's a big, big step, but the release of having somebody on the other end of that email thread, that post, that phone call, whatever way you communicate, ugh, when you don't feel so alone, it's beauty. It's absolute beauty. Let's think about, um, sometimes we just need to hear that we're not alone. That we're not alone. That was the birth of the Me Too movement. That somebody wrote something and somebody else said, "Me too." And then somebody else said, "Me too," and me. And suddenly it exploded because suddenly people felt like they weren't the only one. And it just takes reaching out. And just don't reach out to one person because if they don't respond to you, I don't want you to take that on and take that personally. Not at all.
No, exactly. It's very true. And if people want specifically your help, where can they find you?
Mm, that's a great question. I love that question. Because I'm gonna circle back to an amazing quote from a wonderful author that I absolutely love, Stephen King. Yes, the horror author, Carrie and Pet Sematary. Yes, he did a wonderful short story book called Different Seasons. And in the start of one of the stories, there's a nice long quote. I'm going to condense it, but in essence, it says, "The most important things are the hardest things to say, locked within, not for the want of a teller, but for the want of an understanding ear." My URL where you can find me and all of my resources is understandingear.com.
Well, that's a real clever way of doing that. And what we're doing, make sure it's in the description as well so people can get to it quicker. Well, it's been a real lovely conversation and we could go on all night, but unfortunately we're going to have to end soon. So I've got a couple of questions to finish off with. So the first one is, if you had 30 seconds with your 13-year-old self, what would you say?
Don't change a thing. Don't change a thing. Just live your life, enjoy every single moment, and the future is so bright. It absolutely is.
And the last one is, if you could be remembered for one word and one word only, what would it be and why?
Fierce. Fierce, because that's how I feel. That's how I feel. Having gone through my entire life and my betrayal, I feel fierce.
No, brilliant. That's a lovely way to end. And Vanessa, thank you so much for your time, and you're welcome back on any time you want to. It's been a real pleasure.
It's been my honor, my pleasure. Thank you so much, Lee. Please give my best to Claire.